you for coming, of course. And I would like to thank also the camera organization who made this trip possible, who invited me and sponsored my trip here. And as mentioned, basically I am a human rights activist. I'm not affiliated with any political party. I'm a person who grown up and developed in a refugee camp for 33 years. From 1966 till 1999, I lived in a refugee camp. Basically, I started my human rights career with an Israeli organization called B'Tselem, the Human Rights Information Center in the occupied territories. I worked for B'Tselem for around 7.5 years. And after the Oslo Agreement, I decided to resign from B'Tselem and to create a Palestinian human rights organization to deal with the Palestinian Authority human rights violations. As you might know, to create a human rights organization under the Arab regime, it looks like to commit a suicide. I was defamed, I was slandered, I was arrested even by Yasser Arafat in January 1996. But I was so lucky that I kept in jail only for 25 hours, and the one who succeeded to release me in that time was the US Secretary, Warren Christopher, under the Bill Clinton administration. So I am not so familiar with the Palestinian Authority, and of course that the Palestinian Authority is not so familiar with me. Just since 6 years ago, I changed my work a little bit. I left the human rights work and I start working as a political analyst on the internal Palestinian politics and conflicts. As you might know, we the Palestinians not only have a conflict with the Israelis, we have a conflict among ourselves, and of course we have a lot of conflicts with some other Arab countries. So tonight, I am going to talk much more about the internal Palestinian politics and conflicts. And I prefer here to start probably from the Gaza Strip, because recently, Gaza became not only an obstacle to the Israelis, but Gaza became an obstacle to the Palestinians themselves, and Gaza also became an obstacle to the Egyptian government recently. If we will look today to the Gaza Strip, we will find that there are 4 different players playing inside the Gaza Strip. The first player is the Egyptian government. The second player is the Palestinian Authority of the West Bank. The third player, of course, the Hamas. And the fourth player is Israel by itself. Now, the first 2 players here, which is the Egyptian government and the Palestinian Authority in the West Bank, are very interesting in the destruction of the Gaza Strip, in destroying the Gaza Strip. Why? The Egyptian government believes that the Hamas is a terrorist organization. The Egyptian government believes that while more and more pressure Egypt will impose on the Gaza Strip, that's probably the way how to get rid from the Hamas. Now, the Palestinian Authority, of course, joining these 2 aspects, because the Palestinian Authority also believes that while Egypt imposing more and more pressure on the Gaza Strip, that will pave the way to the Palestinian Authority to return back to Gaza and to recontrol Gaza like they used to do till 2007. Now, the other 2 players, which is the Hamas number 1 and Israel, number two, are much more interesting in the reconstruction of the Gaza Strip, not in the destruction of the Gaza Strip. So if the Hamas and Israel are in the mood of reconstructing the Gaza Strip, where is the conflict here? The conflict is that the Hamas saying that the priority for the reconstruction in Gaza should have to go to our own tunnels and to our military capability. While Israel said, no way. The priority for the reconstruction should have to go to the houses and to the other civil facilities which has been destroyed during the summer war in 2014. And this is unfortunately why the whole reconstruction of Gaza delayed. Because this is the internal fight among the Palestinians themselves inside the Gaza Strip. Friends, if you will take the Rafah passage today, which is dividing Gaza from Egypt, during the last year, 2016, the Rafah passage was open only for 20 days. During the whole year, only 20 days. How many Palestinians from Gaza succeed to cross to Egypt during the last year? 20,000 only. If we will take 2011 as an example, how many Palestinians succeed to cross from Gaza to Egypt? 460,000, around 500,000. To compare it to 20,000 people only during the last year, I think that this is the real pressure. If you will come today to any ordinary Gazan guy and asking him which country really imposing the blockade on the Gaza Strip, most of the people will say Egypt. And no one will say Israel. Because Israel still providing the food, the electricity, the medicines, and everything. And the Rafah passage is closed. Just few days ago, I heard that Israel decided during 2017 to provide 700 million tons of cement to the Gaza Strip. 700 million. How much Egypt is going to provide during the 2017? 60 million ton only. Look to the difference here. How much Israel want to provide and how much the Egyptians want to provide. So when I am looking today to the Gazan people, I am feeling so sorry how these people became hostages for their own government. I think that the Hamas is ruling Gaza by force, not because the people want the Hamas. And that's reminding me a week ago when I talked with some couple of youths, Palestinians in Gaza. One of them told me that if Israel tomorrow will open one of its passages for 2 hours, 30% of the youth Gazans will immigrate to outside. So people are waiting for opportunity to leave Gaza. But when that opportunity will come, nobody knows. So this is unfortunately the situation in the Gaza Strip. If we will move a little bit to the West Bank now, I am a person who believes if Mr. Netanyahu tomorrow will meet with President Abbas, probably the first question Netanyahu is going to ask Abbas, whom you are representing, Mr. President? West Bank, Gaza Strip, or Palestinians diaspora? In my opinion, President Abbas only representing his two sons and his wife. I think that the Palestinians almost lost the trust in their own leadership. If you will come today to any ordinary Palestinian in the West Bank and asking him, what are the most three priorities that you are seeking? He will say a job to survive, to secure the education system and the health system for my children. Nobody is talking about settlements. Nobody is talking about the wall. Nobody even talking about the foundation of the Palestinian state, which means that we already lost the trust in our own leadership. I think that the majority of the Palestinians these days are people who are looking for dignity rather than identity. I'm not care about identity. I am much more care about dignity. And dignity can be approached only via an economic prosperity. And I used to tell my Palestinian colleagues all the time that homeland is not the place where you're born. Homeland is the place where you can find dignity, justice, and freedoms. That's the homeland. If Germany will provide me tomorrow with dignity and justice and freedoms, I have no problem to be a German citizen. That's exactly what should be. Friends, if you will look today to the Middle East map and how the Islamic terror is increasing and surrounding all of the Middle East, you will find that the Israeli-Palestinian conflict is probably the most safe place in the Middle East. As an Arab, as a Muslim, I don't want to be in Libya. I don't want to be in Iraq. I don't want to be in Syria. I don't want to be in Yemen. It's much more safe for myself, for my children, to continue living under the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. I think that people who are living outside has no idea about the conflict. Sometimes when I am traveling to Jordan, people coming to me by saying, listen, how you are living with these Jewish people? What does it mean, how I am living? I'm living much better than you are. I am living much better than you are, excuse me. I look to the Palestinian refugees in Jordan. I look to the Palestinian refugees in Syria. I look to the Palestinian refugees in Lebanon. It's unbelievable. The situation of the Palestinian refugees under the Israelis much better than it is under any other Arab country. I visited all the refugee camps in Lebanon, in Syria, and in Jordan. I developed myself in a refugee camp. But what I saw in Lebanon, I couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe it that people who want to leave the camp in Lebanon for work need a permit from the government. I bought a house outside the camp, and I never asked for permit from any government here. Unfortunately, UNRWA today, the United Nations Works and Relief Agency, is holding the Palestinian refugees in the camps as hostages. They don't want to solve the issue of the refugees. Because by holding over than 4 million Palestinian refugees in Jordan, in Syria, and in Lebanon, I think that UNRWA is gaining power and money on that. And we are the losers. So sometimes, when some European countries coming and saying if Israel is not going to resume the peace negotiations with the Palestinians, we are going to recognize the Palestinian state. Which state you are going to recognize? A state which has no economic sources. A state which has no institutions. A state where over than 54% of its populations are living in refugee camps. This is not the state that I am seeking. This is not the state that I want. I want the international community, first of all, to start building the state and then to recognize the state. State need to be built before it's recognized. And this is one of the major problems, in my opinion, of the Palestinian state. I think that Europe should have to evaluate again and again its foreign policy towards the Middle East. I think that the European policy, including, of course, the American policy, in the past 40 years, almost created terror in the Middle East. And neither the Europeans nor the Americans succeed to bring any peace for any conflict around the world. It's the opposite. When we receive a new American administration, more conflicts created around the world. This is the major problem of the world. In my opinion, the only one who can solve the Israeli-Palestinian conflict is the Israelis and the Palestinians only. I don't believe anymore in any third party around the world. Look how many conferences took place, how many initiatives took place, how many agreements took place, and we, the Palestinians, are moving backward. The majority of the Palestinians today believes that our daily life used to be much better before the Oslo Agreement. So what we achieved from the Oslo Agreement, in my opinion, what we the Palestinians achieved from the Oslo Agreement is such corrupt leadership called the Palestinian Authority. That's it. The people in the streets are much more talking about the corruption rather than anything else, because there is no achievements from the Palestinian Authority. Since the Palestinian Authority created 23 years ago, no one university has been built by the Palestinian Authority. No one hospital was built by the Palestinian Authority. So why we need is such kind of corrupt leadership. Now the question is, who is going to replace Abbas? God knows. If you will ask me, who is going to replace Abbas, I will tell you Abbas. Because there is no other chance here, no other opportunity here. We don't have opposition here. The Legislative Council almost closed by Abbas' order since the Hamas took over the Gaza Strip in 2007. And Abbas is not interested to open the Legislative Council at all. Because it's very easy for Abbas to release laws by signing a presidential decree. And that presidential decree of yesterday will become the law of tomorrow. So why we need a legislative council for that? Just a month ago, Abbas decided to remove the impunity from 5 legislative council members. How it could be that a president can remove the impunity of the elected people by the Palestinians? How it could be? But who is care? I didn't see that Germany tried to interfere in that and asking Abbas what you are doing, or the Americans. So this is not important. This is not democracy that we should have to deal with it right now. We already received a new American administration. I remember Mr. Trump last year, I participated in a big conference for AIPAC in Washington, D.C. in March last year. And Mr. Trump was invited to give a talk over there. Among the others, he said, I am the one who can solve the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. Then everybody started laughing. Then he said, you know why I can solve it? As a businessman, not as a politician. And looks like sometimes that the Israeli-Palestinian conflict is really become a big business in the Middle East. And I am a person who believes that we really need some businessmen, probably they will be able to solve it. I don't believe in politicians anymore. If it is business, so we need businessmen to come and to deal with it. Especially when we are talking about prosperity here, about dignity, about economic prosperity. I would love to see some businessmen around the world who try to interfere in the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. Because I'm a person who believes that a good economy will pave the way towards the solution. So probably I will stop right now and giving you another 40 minutes to make things more clear. Thank you very much. Thank you.